Hey guys, what's going on? Today we take a look at my custom 212 open back cab. I actually built this cab about 4 years ago. I really just A, wanted to see if I could do it, and B, have a blue Tolex cab. The cab itself is loosely based on the orange 212 open back. It has a diagonal pattern of the speakers, so it's a little smaller footprint as far as the width. The depth is a pretty standard depth. It's about a foot. I found the wood at Lowe's. It's Baltic birch. It's 3/4, which is actually a little smaller than 3/4, so it's not quite that wide. I'm going to take you through some of the pictures and like a slideshow of kind of the build. But right now, I've got the cab loaded with greenbacks. You're going to see throughout that I was just fitting different speakers and that kind of thing. It's my first build, so there's some, carpentry issues, but you don't really see it because it's Tolexed. But yeah, all in all, I've used this cab to gig with. I've used it for rehearsals. I've used it for recording, and it sits like right beside me in my studio all the time. So I'm going to take you through kind of the build, some of the parts, and if you're feeling lucky, definitely try to do it one day. So off the bat, you can see the jig. This is something I rigged with my router and a couple pieces of test wood. The spacing's slightly off, and that was done because this wood's a little different than the wood I used, but I needed something to make a jig with. Here you can see I've already cut all the pieces, and I didn't really document everything as well as I could have, but you can see my note for the front of the cab, kind of the join here because it's a finger join. You can see the cab is just, the sides are just mounted. I'm just going to check my level here. So I've got my square in there. And this is actually all glued up. So you can see the clamps on it, and then I've got a 2x4 on the inside just to kind of hold it together to attach the baffles to. Basically one on every side. I don't think the orange cabs are built like this, but this is how I did it, and you can actually see my jig in this picture of how I lined up on the router and cut the finger joints. Here you can see I've sanded and I've put in some wood putty, more uniform and square on the edges. Here I've cut the sides to accept the handles. Find them anywhere, but they're the smaller ones, not the larger ones. It is a smaller cabinet, so I don't want these huge handles sticking in and out of the cab. But they worked really well. I used standard screws. They didn't come with screws, so I bought some screws at the hardware store. My measurements and cut it out. Here you can see just another angle, and you can see how it's not a completely square hole. Putting on the front baffle, and that was tracing the outsides of the speakers, I believe. So now you can see it with the holes cut out, and they're by no means straight. I think I cut it with a jigsaw and did it freehand. There's another view, and you can see on the inside where I had to trim baffle backers. At least that's what I'm going to call them. So obviously if I do this again, I know what not to do. Here you can see the front. And also in this picture, you can see where I've taken the router and I've rounded off the edges of the corners as well. Here I've dry fitted a V30 just because I had it lying around. Here's what two speakers look like. And as you can see, I had a Vox Blue and a V30 just lying around, so I just dry fitted it. So here we get to the Tolex covering. This is a blue vinyl. I found it at it was like a local fabric store, but I covered it in glue. So I brushed it on, and it took a little time to set, but you can see where I drew lines of where the cab would be because I basically just wanted to have the whole strip to go completely around the cab and put the cab on top of it and kind of roll it. So here you can see where I've cut the corners out, which is kind of a tricky cut, and you can see the DAP glue sitting there. So this is where I've folded over the corners, and you can see the corners came out really nice. Now you can see where the back is different than the front as far as the baffles and the distance from. It's about 1.5 inches or 1 inch on the back because I want it completely flush on the back. Here's where the handle gets put in, which looks very nice. Because it is a 3/4 back, the top is the thicker piece, and that kind of hole in the middle is where the input jack is going to go. And then the lower piece is a separate piece. So there you can see the piece is separated from the cab. There's just another look. I started putting corners on, and there's the feeder on, and you can see, I can't remember what those pieces are called that hold the speakers in, but those are put in. Those are neat little silver pieces. Here's another view. It's the inside of the cab. So you can see how far the speaker handles actually protrude into the cab. And there are the greenbacks that are loaded in. And you can see I kind of put the tabs together so I didn't have to wire it as far. But I did not use pull-on, pull-off tabs. I used soldering in this cab. And there's the jacks put on. So I just used a single. I didn't wire it to be daisy chained. I didn't wire it to be, stereo or anything. It's just a mono cab. There's the front, which I never painted that baffle either. And I did that for a reason. Tone Tips 1 was about miking a speaker cab, and that's why I left it open. I could see where on the speaker I was without trying too hard. At the time, time I had a Mesa mini rectifier, so you can see how close to the top the plug is, but this was just testing it just to see how it worked. There's a picture of the back, all done. And those screws I found at the hardware store too, and I bought the corners online. So you can see where there's only 2 screws in, and it kind of fits over and it hangs over the lip, which is really nice. And there's another picture. Now the white piping I got, and it's kind of like it's a Fender turquoisey black silver combination for the grill, which is really nice, but the white really separates it. Now the white is almost flush with the front of the cab. I didn't staple it around the baffle as far back as I should have gone, but I kind of like it, so I've just left it as is. I've never changed it. There's just another look. But yeah, that's the build. I hope that gave you a little bit of insight to my custom cab. I documented it as much as I could as while I was building it, but I didn't obviously document everything. But yeah, it was a fun build. It took me about a month, just working a couple nights or on the weekend. The glue takes some time to dry, so I left the cab in place with the clamps on it for days. But yeah, it was a great experience. If you've never done it before and you're kind of handy, I would suggest trying it. It does cost you a few $100. It's going to cost you almost what it would be to buy one used, but it's custom, and you made it and you got some enjoyment out of it, and you probably learned something. As always, thanks for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Many more videos to come. Don't miss one sub.